It's the beginning of a new and excitingly different tokusatsu franchise of Project R.E.D., with the R.E.D. in the name being an acronym for Records of Extraordinary Dimensions. This franchise serves as a spiritual successor for Super Sentai, even having Red Heroes be the mascot of each show being the only perceived rule for these new shows, like Sentai. Though the producers and creators behind it have said they want to experiment more with the format going forward. And as for the first entry in the Project R.E.D. series, it's a strange one, for better or worse. Super Space Sheriff Gavan Infinity is not the return or reboot of the Metal Heroes franchise like some may think on the surface. It's simply using the basis of the classic Gavan show and fusing it with Super Sentai elements like multicolored heroes, team-based cooperation, and giant robots to launch into a new story. Some may find this idea conceptually strange, but as I said in my Gavan video earlier this year, this makes sense on a meta level since Gavan took over during one of Kamen Rider's many hiatuses, so having a new version of Gavan come when Sentai goes on hiatus is kinda fitting. The premise of Gavan Infinity, the show, revolves around the titular hero, whose civilian name is Reijidoki. He's a multiversal police detective who transcends various dimensions and teams up with their respective Gavans to stop evil using the emo gears based on various human emotions. Other Gavans Reiji teams up with include the sand android samurai Bushido, the happy scientist Luminous, and the chill but fearful ninja Raya. There's also a mysterious evil Gavan called the Deaf Gavan going around dimensions who Infinity must defeat. Let's start off with the positives of the series. I like the various shiny Gavan suits showcased, especially how they adapt the classic transformation sequences and glow-in-the-dark eyes from the original Gavan show to modern times. And that's my major positive of the show without putting an asterisk attached to it, because I'm not going to bury the lead, this is the most disappointing tokusatsu show I've ever watched week to week. That is a big yikes for the start of a new franchise. And it's weird, because my problems with the show aren't really because the characters themselves are bad, they're not. They have great backstories and fun dynamics with one another, but it never feels like they're allowed to progress or change in the 23 episodes they have. Hell, there's one episode where you think something's gonna change in the status quo of a new Gavan Luminous user, but it's undone the very next episode. That was still a great dramatic moment at the time, but the way it reversed it made it hit less in retrospect. Some people may suggest to add more episodes, but I disagree. I just think the show is just fundamentally not written well. Speaking of, the episode-to-episode plots aren't that great. Outside of episodes focused on silly guest Gavans like the Ant and Train ones, none of the plots or episode morals stood out as that unique to me. And this lack of gripping plotting isn't helped by the fact that the villains only have one monster suit they use throughout the entire show with very little variation done with it. I normally don't complain about budgetary restrictions to tokusatsu, I think they're part of the charm, but they become more noticeable when the show's writing and action choreography fail to compensate for the limited resources, especially when the creative staff promoted the show by focusing in on the action. Some may say Gavan Infinity is trying to be a Showa-style tokusatsu throwback with the episodic plots and action focus, but as someone who's actually watched all of Showa Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, and even the original Gavan, I don't like that idea. Not because those shows are bad, far from it, but because Infinity missed the appeal of those shows in its execution. While those shows had lower budgets, those shows had unique monster suits for every episodic concept, and even if the characters didn't go through major arcs, they had memorable moments of comedy, pathos, and action. Also, it's not the 80s anymore! Tokusatsu has long since evolved with its presentation and storytelling. Just focusing on pure action scenes isn't gonna cut it anymore. I feel like doing this half-assed sloppy job and calling it a throwback with a modern twist isn't experimentation as many were saying Project R.E.D. was gonna be. It's just mediocre entertainment. Nostalgia slop, as the kids say. Also, I don't know where else to put this rant before I head into the conclusion, but man, I hate how hard they lean into the cop angle of the space sheriffs in the show, doubly so of the emotion-based power source, which is just weird. I don't think my stupid overthinking brain could enjoy a show about cops fighting with emotions in big 2026 without some kind of edge or commentary, and Infinity fails to deliver a twist that makes it palatable. To be honest, I don't even think Gavan Infinity is a show about anything of substance. It's just a time and toy slot filler first and foremost, and by God does it feel that way. It has the pieces to say something about emotions or heroism, maybe even something really bad that I can deconstruct, but it never quite fit into place outside of generic platitudes many outsiders criticize these tokusatsu hero shows for. It's not even an awful show. There's good pieces of action choreography and fun character moments sprinkled throughout each episode. It's just really frustrating as a whole piece. I wanted to be a Project R.E.D. cheerleader from frame 1. I wanted to show people that just because Super Sentai is gone doesn't mean there's no more value in tokusatsu. And I still stand by that. There's still amazing tokusatsu being produced right now. But man, Gavan Infinity didn't work for me. It's just a show that exists. At least it was half the length of a normal Sentai or Rider show, so I can move on to the next project real quickly, but I don't like feeling that way. That just feels gross. I don't want to be a hater about these tokusatsu shows, man. I love most of them. It's just when I don't like something, I don't like something, and I'm not gonna lie about it. Well, good luck, Omega Horn.